Do you ever feel that holiness is something distant, reserved only for those who seem stronger, purer, or more disciplined than you? Do you wonder if God truly notices the small, hidden things you do when no one else sees? Do you ever fear that your ordinary life is too simple to become a path of sanctity? There is a quiet truth that rises like dawn through the ordinary moments of a human day, soft, unannounced, and yet powerful enough to transform a soul from within. Holiness is not found in grand gestures, but in the unnoticed corners of the heart. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, subscribe if you wish to walk this little way with us. The morning begins, not with a miracle, but with a breath. The kind of breath you rarely pay attention to. A cup on the table, a curtain moving with the breeze, a thought rising slowly in the mind before the noise of the world begins. It is here, precisely here, that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux teaches the first of 5 attitudes that quietly sanctify the day, the desire to love in small things. She believed that holiness was not a mountain climbed by the strong, but a path made of tiny steps taken by those who trust like children. She showed the world that God is profoundly moved by the smallest acts done with pure intention, a smile offered when tired, patience chosen instead of irritation, silence kept instead of complaint, a prayer whispered instead of a sigh. Thérèse wrote, "Nothing is too small for love, nothing." She believed that even the smallest gesture, when offered with tenderness toward God, becomes large in the eyes of heaven. Picture this. You are washing dishes, and your mind drifts toward frustration. But instead of allowing the irritation to grow, you take one gentle breath and say, "Lord, receive this from me." And in that single second, the ordinary becomes holy. Or imagine you are walking down the street, and you choose to smile at someone who looks tired, lonely, or unseen. A small smile, nothing dramatic. Yet in the little way, this is an offering of love, a seed planted in the silence. It is not the size of the action that sanctifies, it is the heart behind it. This first attitude, the desire to love in every little detail, is the key that unlocks the rest. It turns your day into a series of sacred opportunities, gentle, hidden, unnoticed by many, but deeply seen by God. The second attitude that sanctifies your day quietly is something Saint Thérèse of Lisieux practiced with unwavering tenderness, welcoming the imperfections of life and your own with humility. She did not believe holiness was a flawless performance. She believed it was the courage to remain small, even when your pride urges you to prove, defend, or justify yourself. Ask yourself, how often do you expect too much from your day? How often do you demand more strength, more clarity, more perfection from yourself, and then fall into discouragement when reality doesn't cooperate? Thérèse invites you into another way, a gentler, humbler way. She once wrote, "Holiness is not about never falling, it is about rising quickly with love." She believed that God is not surprised by your weakness. He is not disappointed by your humanity. He uses it, patiently, delicately, to draw you closer to Him. Imagine a morning when you wake up already tired. You forget something important. You snap at someone you love. You feel frustrated with yourself. Most people allow these small failures to shape the entire day, but the little way whispers, "Offer it. Don't hide from God. Bring Him the pieces." This is humility in its most beautiful disarming form, not humiliation, not shame, but a quiet acknowledgement that you are small, and God is not asking you to be anything else. Thérèse believed that even your imperfections can become holy if they are surrendered with trust. Picture a child learning to walk. The father is not angry when the child falls. He is delighted that the child keeps trying. This is how Thérèse understood God, a father more tender than stern, more patient than demanding. So when something goes wrong in your day, do not rush to self-criticism. Pause. Breathe. Say gently, "Lord, I am small, but I want to love you in this." This humility becomes a sanctuary in the middle of ordinary chaos. It transforms the way you treat others too. You become softer, less reactive, more compassionate toward their weakness, because you have allowed God to touch your own. This small attitude, the embrace of imperfection with humility, makes space for grace to enter every corner of your day. It sanctifies not by grandeur, but by softness. And in this softness, God builds something strong. The third attitude that quietly sanctifies your day is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux lived with childlike clarity, doing every duty, no matter how small, with love, not haste. Most people move through the day as if chased by an invisible clock. Tasks become obstacles. Responsibilities become burdens. Moments become something to get through rather than something to offer. But Thérèse understood something different, something tender, transformative, almost hidden from the hurried eye. She believed that every small duty carries a place where love can enter. Not because the duty is pleasant, not because it is meaningful on its own, but because the heart performing it can transform it. Thérèse wrote, "To pick up a pin for love can convert a soul." It is one of the simplest sentences ever written by a saint, and one of the deepest. She believed that the smallest action becomes powerful when done with intention, when you pause, just for a breath, and place love inside it. Imagine folding laundry quietly, instead of rushing as if it were a race. Imagine preparing a meal and choosing to see it not as another obligation, but as a small offering of care. Imagine answering a message with patience instead of irritation. Imagine finishing a task you dislike and whispering, "Lord, receive this from me. I do it with love." The world will never applaud these moments. There is no reward, no recognition, no applause. But heaven notices. Thérèse believed that love, hidden in daily duties, rises like incense before God. Soft, invisible, but unforgettable to the one who sees the heart. When you wash a cup, when you sweep the floor, when you respond gently, when you show kindness to someone who irritates you, these become the quiet sanctuaries of the little way. And here is the secret she understood deeply. Love grows stronger when it chooses the small. Because the small reveals the truth of the heart. It shows whether you act for praise or simply for God. In a world obsessed with achievement, success, and visible results, this little way becomes revolutionary. It slows the soul, it softens the tone. It teaches you to live from the inside out rather than from pressure to performance. Thérèse invites you to enter the day differently, not rushing through tasks, but sanctifying them, one small act, one small breath, one small offering at a time. This attitude makes the day a quiet cathedral. The fourth attitude that gently sanctifies your day is one of the most delicate and transformative of the little way. Choosing kindness when your heart feels tempted to withdraw. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux understood something that many overlook. Kindness is not merely being polite. It is not smiling because you should. It is not avoiding conflict or pretending everything is fine. Kindness in the little way is a spiritual offering, a small death to self, a conscious act of love that blooms precisely when it is hardest to give. Thérèse once wrote, "A single act of charity done in dryness is worth more than 1,000 done in joy." She believed that heaven treasures the kindness that costs something, the patience you choose when someone is rude, the gentleness you offer when you are tired, the good word you speak when silence would have been easier. Imagine a moment in your day when someone irritates you, a coworker, a family member, a stranger. Your heart tightens, the impulse to respond sharply rises, and for a split second, you want to close yourself, to protect your peace by retreating inward. But then, you breathe, you soften, you choose tenderness instead of reaction. No one may notice this, but Thérèse would call it a hidden victory of love. She believed that kindness given in difficult moments becomes like a secret thread strengthening the soul. It turns conflict into communion. It transforms the atmosphere of a room. It humbles the heart without humiliating it. Picture yourself standing in line and someone cuts ahead. Your instinct tightens, but you remain calm. Or imagine receiving an unfair comment, and instead of defending yourself, you respond with measured gentleness. Or you notice someone who looks lonely and offer a smile, even though your day has been heavy. These small gestures do not solve the world, but they sanctify it, quietly. Because each act of kindness is a seed planted in eternity. Thérèse believed deeply that when you choose kindness in the moments when it costs something, you imitate Christ not in grand works, but in hidden fidelity. She called this the little martyrdoms of daily life, the small sacrifices that no one applauds but God receives with joy. This fourth attitude opens your heart like a gentle lantern, illuminating the day in ways you may never fully see. But God sees all of it, and perhaps the greatest kindness is the one you offer silently, a kindness that becomes prayer. The fifth and final attitude that sanctifies your day quietly is the one Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered the heart of the little way itself, trusting God in the small, hidden places where nothing seems to change. Trust is not a feeling, it is not clarity, it is not certainty. Trust for Thérèse was a resting of the soul, a gentle leaning into God when the path is dim, the day feels ordinary, and the heart feels small. Ask yourself, how often do you carry silent anxieties? How often do you hold fears that no one else sees? How often do you wonder if God is near in the places where life feels slow, routine, or directionless? Thérèse believed that these are the exact places where trust becomes holy. She wrote, "Jesus does not look so much at the greatness of our actions, but at the love with which they are done." And trust, for her, was the greatest act of love. Trust means believing that God is present, even when emotions are flat. It means offering Him the concerns you keep hidden in your heart. It means walking through your day as a child who knows that a father is holding her hand, even when she cannot see his face. Imagine waking up with uncertainty about work, relationships, health, the future. The mind begins to race. But instead of drowning in thoughts, you pause and whisper the simplest prayer Thérèse loved. Jesus, I trust you. Even in this. Especially in this. It is not dramatic, it is not eloquent. It is small, so small you may think it means nothing. But in the little way, this is everything. Picture yourself during a quiet moment, waiting for water to boil, sitting in traffic, walking from one room to another. These in-between spaces become gentle invitations. You take a breath. You place the day, its weight, its worries, its imperfections, into God's hands. Nothing around you changes, yet something inside you softens. Thérèse believed that trust was like lifting a tiny flower toward heaven, fragile, simple, unnoticed, but deeply loved by God. This fifth attitude transforms the entire day, not by removing difficulties, but by placing them into a relationship of love and surrender. When you trust God in the small things, you allow Him to enter your ordinary life with extraordinary tenderness. Your heart becomes freer. Your steps become lighter. Your day becomes sanctified not by effort, but by surrender. And this is the beautiful paradox of the little way. The smaller you become, the more room you make for God. If the 5 attitudes sanctify your day, then Thérèse reveals something deeper, how these small attitudes slowly reshape the way you see your entire life. Because for Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, holiness was not a moment, it was a movement, a gentle, almost imperceptible shift of the heart toward God in the smallest corners of daily existence. Thérèse believed that when you begin practicing the little way, even clumsily, even inconsistently, even imperfectly, something subtle begins to change inside you. You begin to notice grace where you once saw only pressure. You begin to feel peace in moments that used to overwhelm you. You begin to recognize God in the ordinary pauses of the day. Holiness stops feeling like an unreachable mountain and becomes something astonishingly simple, a quiet turning of the heart. Thérèse wrote, "I choose everything." But what she meant was not grand achievement. She chose every small opportunity to love, every hidden moment, every forgotten detail, every little sacrifice. She believed that these countless small choices accumulate like grains of sand until they form a path that leads gently and steadily toward God. Imagine a day when everything goes wrong. You oversleep, forget commitments, struggle to focus, feel misunderstood or unappreciated. Once, this day would have frustrated you deeply. But now, because you have practiced the little way, your heart responds differently. You remember that smallness is not failure. Imperfection is not a barrier. Weakness is not a surprise to God. You take a breath, offer it all, and keep going with simplicity. Slowly, almost quietly, this changes everything. You begin to love without expecting applause. You begin to care for others without needing recognition. You begin to forgive faster, hold less resentment, and find joy in unnoticed gestures. And then something truly beautiful happens. You begin to feel seen by God in moments where no human eye is looking. This new way of seeing does not make life easier, it makes life holier. It turns the mundane into meaningful, the ordinary into offering, the small into sacred. Thérèse believed that a soul who embraces smallness becomes spacious inside, spacious enough for trust, spacious enough for peace, spacious enough for God Himself. This transformation does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like dawn, slow, gentle, quiet, but unstoppable. And once the little way begins reshaping your gaze, you start living with a softness that is not weakness, but wisdom. There comes a moment in the little way when something almost hidden begins to unfold. You start recognizing God in the smallest movements around you, movements you once dismissed as ordinary. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux believed that grace is rarely loud. It does not rush into the room, it does not demand attention. Instead, it arrives in whispers, in the shifting of light across a table, in the warmth of a hand you hold, in the quiet sigh after a long day, in the patience you find when you thought you had none. Thérèse wrote, "Everything is grace, not as a poetic exaggeration, but as a spiritual discovery." She truly saw God in the details others overlooked. And when you begin practicing the little way, you start seeing these details too. Imagine walking through your home early in the morning. Nothing extraordinary is happening. The air is cool, the house is quiet. A soft beam of sunlight touches the floor. In the past, you would not have noticed. But now, something inside you pauses. You feel a subtle invitation. Be here. Receive this moment. Let it be enough. This awareness is not mystical. It is relational. It is the heart learning to pay attention. Thérèse believed that spiritual awareness grows precisely through small acts done with love. The more you practice them, the more your heart becomes capable of recognizing grace in the unexpected places. You begin to see God in the person who smiles at you in passing, the ability to forgive when you didn't think you could, the strength to stay gentle in a harsh moment, the impulse to pray in the middle of an ordinary task. The little way does not blind you to suffering. It refines your sight so that even suffering becomes a place where grace can enter. Picture yourself facing a difficult moment, tension at work, a harsh word spoken to you, a disappointment you didn't expect. Before, you might have closed your heart. But now, because Thérèse's teachings are shaping your gaze, you pause. You notice the space between reaction and response. In that space, you choose love. This is where the transformation becomes noticeable, not externally, but internally. You begin living with a steady flame, not a fire that burns wildly. A flame that warms, comforts, and guides. The little way slowly teaches you that God is not waiting for grand gestures. He is present, deeply present, in the tiny, fragile, quiet threads of everyday life. And when you start seeing Him there, the world becomes softer. Your heart becomes quieter and holiness feels stunningly close. As the little way deepens, something profound begins to shift in your interior world. You start responding to life with gentleness instead of tension, with surrender instead of resistance. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux believed that gentleness was not merely a personality trait, it was a spiritual discipline, a way of shaping the heart to resemble Christ in quiet, humble ways. She once wrote, "It is not enough to love, we must love tenderly." Tenderness, for Thérèse, was love that refused to harden itself, even when life pressed heavily upon it. And it is precisely through practicing those 5 small attitudes, the desire to love, embracing imperfection, sanctifying daily duties, choosing kindness and trusting God, that your heart becomes capable of this sacred gentleness. Imagine a moment that usually overwhelms you, a sharp comment from someone you care about, a plan that falls apart without warning, a worry that rises late at night. Before, these moments would tighten your chest, trigger defensiveness, or push you toward control. But now, because the little way has formed new habits within you, you pause. Something soft, almost fragile, rises in your soul. a willingness not to fight the moment, but to meet it with calm trust. This gentleness does not mean passivity. It means you respond from a place of grounded love rather than fear or impatience. Thérèse understood that gentleness was a fruit of humility, the recognition that you do not need to win every argument, explain every feeling, or correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes holiness is found in letting things be. Picture yourself sitting at the end of a long day. There are tasks unfinished, conversations unresolved, feelings unprocessed. In the past, you might have spiraled into anxiety or frustration, but now you take a breath and offer the day exactly as it is. Not perfect, not impressive, but offered. This is the spiritual tenderness Thérèse taught. The ability to treat your own soul gently, to give yourself permission to be human, to trust that God works quietly in the places you cannot see. And as this gentleness grows in you, something unexpected happens. You become a source of peace for others. People feel calmer around you. Your presence becomes a resting place. Your words carry softness instead of sharpness. Your responses create space rather than tension. This gentleness, born from 5 small, holy attitudes, becomes your way of carrying God's peace into the world without ever raising your voice. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, but it is deeply, unmistakably holy. There comes a point on the little way when the transformation becomes unmistakably interior. You begin to realize that holiness is not something you chase. It is something you allow. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux understood this deeply. She believed that the spiritual life does not grow through pressure, intensity, or relentless effort. It grows the way a flower opens at dawn, quietly, naturally, without forcing itself. She wrote, "My vocation is love." But she did not mean a dramatic, heroic love. She meant a love that unfolds in trust, in surrender, in hidden places where the soul simply lets God be God. And this is the 9th movement of the little way, allowing God to sanctify your day from the inside out. Imagine a morning when you wake up and feel spiritually empty. You try to pray, nothing comes. You try to be patient, irritation rises. You try to offer your small sacrifices, but your heart feels distracted, distant, almost numb. In the past you might have felt discouraged, but now with Thérèse guiding you, you understand something different. Spiritual dryness is not failure. It is an invitation. Instead of striving, you soften. You whisper, "Lord, I offer you my nothingness. Do with it what you will." This for Thérèse was one of the highest forms of love. Not the love that feels, but the love that trusts. Because in the little way, God is not waiting for perfection. He is waiting for permission. He is waiting for you to open even the smallest door so he can fill the day with his quiet presence. Imagine standing by your window in the afternoon. Life feels ordinary. Nothing special is happening. You are simply there, breathing, thinking, existing. And suddenly an awareness rises. I don't need to do something extraordinary to be loved by God. I am already his. This awareness, gentle as a sigh, becomes a sanctuary inside you. A place where you feel held, even when you don't feel holy. And slowly the little way begins to shine through your ordinary day. You speak more gently. You forgive more quickly. You listen more carefully. You smile more sincerely. Not because you are trying hard, but because your soul is resting. Thérèse believed deeply that the soul who rests in God allows him to work more powerfully than the soul who constantly strives. Holiness becomes less about effort and more about openness, less about climbing and more about being carried, less about achieving and more about receiving. And in this posture of quiet surrender, your whole day becomes a silent prayer. One God hears and loves infinitely. When the 5 small attitudes begin to shape your day, something beautiful, almost hidden, emerges in your interior life. You discover that sanctity is not a destination you reach, but a way of walking through the world. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux never sought the extraordinary. She never expected visions, ecstasies, or dramatic experiences. Her holiness was woven into the smallest fibers of daily life, just as yours can be. This final block reveals the quiet secret that her little way teaches those who truly live it. Holiness is simply love, lived in the present moment. Not tomorrow, not when you feel stronger, not when life becomes easier, but now, in this breath, in this hour, in this ordinary, imperfect day. Thérèse understood something astonishing. God is not waiting for you to become someone else before he begins his work. He sanctifies you where you are, in the kitchen, at your desk, on your commute, in your tiredness, in your hidden frustrations, in your unnoticed joys. The little way is not a technique, it is a relationship, a way of allowing God to enter the smallest details of your life without resistance. Imagine standing in your room at night, the day behind you. Some moments were good, some were painful, some were forgettable, some were filled with small victories no one else will ever know. Thérèse would say, offer it all. Offer the patience you tried to show. Offer the moments you failed. Offer the kindness you gave when you didn't want to. Offer the trust that felt fragile. Offer the duties you carried out in love. Offer your imperfections, especially your imperfections. Because in the little way, every small thing becomes a gift. The fifth attitude, trusting God in the hidden places, now blends with the others until they form one gentle truth. Your entire day can be a quiet act of love. When you begin to see your life through this lens, something shifts. You are no longer rushing. You are no longer expecting perfection. You are no longer comparing your journey to someone else's. You are no longer believing that holiness is out of reach. Instead, you begin to walk with a softness, not of weakness, but of trust. Not of passivity, but of surrender. Not of uncertainty, but of peace. And Thérèse whispers the truth she discovered. Heaven is not far. It is found in the little things. And so your day, ordinary, quiet, unseen by the world, becomes radiant in the eyes of God. A day sanctified not by greatness but by smallness offered with love. A day where the smallest attitudes become the greatest offerings. A day lived on the little way. Here ends the journey, softly, quietly, beautifully, just as Saint Thérèse of Lisieux lived,